Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome to the fourth episode of DhulQarnain, The Truth Revealed. In this episode, we will take you through the journey of DhulQarnain, where he encounters a community living between two mountains. We will explore how DhulQarnain gathered the necessary materials and constructed the barrier that would separate the people from Gog and Magog. Let us go through verses 93 to 97 to understand what truly happened. In Surah Al-Kahf, verse 93 means, "Until when he reached between the two mountains, he found beside them a people who could hardly understand his speech." Here Allah tells us about DhulQarnain's journey after spending some time with the people of the rising sun. During his next expedition, he encountered a community living near the two mountains. This people struggled to understand every word he spoke. It was not that they possessed a strange or complex language. Rather, as described in the Quran, they were unable to comprehend DhulQarnain's speech at that moment. We believe that this community had been affected by something that caused confusion, making them unable to understand DhulQarnain initially. However, in the following verse, we find that these people were eventually able to communicate with DhulQarnain without difficulty. This suggests that DhulQarnain restored their ability to understand and communicate normally. What exactly did Gog and Magog do to this community? This becomes evidence of the harm and manipulation Gog and Magog were capable of, something that needed to be stopped for the safety of humanity. Now let us look at verses 94 and 95. In verse 94 reads, "They said, 'O DhulQarnain, indeed Gog and Magog are spreading corruption throughout the land. Shall we pay you a tribute if you build a barrier between us and them?' And verse 95 continues, "He replied, 'What my Lord has granted me is far better than what you offer. So assist me only with manpower, and I will build a strong fortification between you and them.'" DhulQarnain's ability to understand and restore clarity to a people who could barely communicate was itself a sign of divine help. Through this miracle, the people were finally able to express their fears, their long-standing conflict with the tribes of Gog and Magog. In desperation, they pleaded with DhulQarnain to construct a barrier, a mighty separation between them and the destructive tribes that threatened their safety. They even offered him payment for the task. But DhulQarnain refused any reward. Instead, he agreed to build the barrier purely for the sake of justice and protection, on the condition that they would assist him in the construction. Now let us turn to verses 96 and 97. Verse 96 states, "Bring me large pieces of iron." And they brought them, until he had filled the entire gap between the two mountains. Then he commanded, "Blow." They blew until the iron became red hot like fire. He then said, "Bring me molten copper, and I will pour it over this." Finally, verse 97 concludes, "Thus Gog and Magog could neither climb over it, nor could they pierce through it." In verse 96, the construction of the barrier between the two mountains required two essential materials, iron and molten copper. So how, and from where, did DhulQarnain obtain these two key resources? To acquire molten copper, DhulQarnain sought assistance from his teacher, Prophet Sulaiman, or known as King Solomon, who had been granted by Allah a continuous flow of molten copper. During the meeting between DhulQarnain, Prophet Sulaiman, and the jinn Ifrit, an agreement was reached. Ifrit would transport the molten copper to the designated location whenever DhulQarnain called upon his name. As for the iron, DhulQarnain had to return to the people of the land where the sun rises, a region in the northern part of the Malay Peninsula, which we explained earlier in episode 3. The second teleportation of DhulQarnain to the land of the rising sun took place with one mission: to seek assistance in obtaining as many iron blocks as possible. Sungai Batu was identified as the primary site for extracting iron, as the surrounding areas were rich with iron deposits. To this day, archaeological evidence has revealed numerous ancient smelting furnaces and more than 2 million tuyere, air-blowing pipes used to channel air into the furnaces. With the teleportation knowledge granted to DhulQarnain, these iron blocks were transported to the location of the people living near the two mountains. Glory be to Allah, the supreme planner and all-knowing, who decreed that DhulQarnain be sent to the people of the rising sun, an area destined to contain high-quality iron essential for the construction of the mighty barrier against Gog and Magog. We are going to reveal to you how the barrier of Yajuj and Majuj was truly constructed, in a way quite different from the usual interpretations of Surah Al-Kahf, verse 96. "Bring me large pieces of iron." And they brought them until he had filled the entire gap between the two mountains. Then he commanded, "Blow!" They blew until the iron became red hot like fire. He then said, "Bring me molten copper, and I will pour it over this." After all the iron slabs and chunks had been transported to the construction site, DhulQarnain instructed the people living near the two mountains to carry these iron pieces to him so he could arrange and stack them tightly, filling the entire gap between the two mountains. Once the arrangement was complete, DhulQarnain called out, "Blow!" At his command, the winds blew, carrying intense heat until the iron turned red hot like blazing fire. While the iron wall was glowing and burning with heat, he then called upon Ifrit the jinn, "Bring me molten copper, and I will pour it over this." In an instant, faster than lightning, Ifrit arrived with the molten copper, assisting DhulQarnain in pouring it over the blazing iron structure. Only through the lightning-fast service of Ifrit could the molten copper be delivered and poured before both the iron wall and the copper began to cool. With the experience DhulQarnain gained from interacting with the jinn under the administration of Prophet Suleiman's kingdom, his knowledge of jinn construction technology enabled him to build the barrier of separation. After the barrier was coated with molten copper from the fountain granted to Prophet Suleiman, it became invisible to the naked eyes of humans, and Gog and Magog were no exception. This is clearly stated in Surah Al-Kahf, verse 97, which means, "Thus Gog and Magog could neither climb over it, nor could they pierce through it." Because the barrier was invisible, it could not be climbed, nor could any tunnel be made through it. The people of Gog and Magog, when passing through this invisible barrier, unknowingly crossed into another dimension and were unable to return. Although they were aware of the existence of this invisible wall, they did not know how to climb it or open a pathway through it. Even though it is said they managed to create small openings, these would always be closed again. Only Allah will destroy and open this passage when the appointed time finally arrives. Next, we look at verse 98 of Surah Al-Kahf, where DhulQarnain said, "This is a mercy from my Lord, but when the promise of my Lord comes to pass, he will level it to the ground, and the promise of my Lord is ever true. A time will surely come when Allah's decree will cause this barrier to collapse, releasing Gog and Magog back into this world." We hope that in this fourth episode, you now clearly understand how DhulQarnain obtained the necessary materials and how they were transported to the site for the construction of the barrier of Gog and Magog. Based on the Quranic evidence presented from episodes 1 to 4, it is clear that DhulQarnain was not Alexander, nor Cyrus the Great, nor any earthly king known in history. DhulQarnain was a keeper of sacred knowledge and a student who inherited divine wisdom from Prophet Suleiman. The vast knowledge granted to Prophet Suleiman and Prophet Daud was passed down to DhulQarnain by Allah's permission, as stated in Surah Sad 38-39. "This is our gift, so give to whomever you wish or withhold without account." Allah entrusted Prophet Suleiman with a kingdom and absolute authority over the wind, the jinn, and the devils, authority that enabled him to grant, share, or delegate his knowledge and capabilities to whomever he chose. With this, we conclude episode 4 of DhulQarnain, The Truth Revealed. We have uncovered how the barrier was built, where its materials came from, and the divine knowledge behind its construction. The journey does not end here. Episode 5 is coming soon. In this episode, we will explore the destroyed civilizations and their connection to Gog and Magog. Stay with us as we continue unveiling the mysteries that have remained hidden for thousands of years. Follow, share, and join us on this extraordinary exploration. Thank you.